was in the room. Fantastic. Super, bang on time, 9:30. Welcome to Neuroccino. Lovely to have you all on board. We have 2 papers today, I think. Leah, if you could also share your link in the chat with everyone, that'd be great. Again, new people in the room, new people on YouTube, I'm guessing. So here are the rules. The rules is people bring in science that they thought was exciting. They explain us why they thought it was exciting, what the study was about, and then we discuss it to the best of our knowledge. And with that, that's literally all the rules we have. Hang on, I'm getting an echo here. That's all the rules we have. The links are shared in the chat. I'm going to push them over on YouTube as well, and we can make a start. Victor, do you want to go first?
I can. So today's paper is not about neuroscience. It's not about also another subject that I sometimes use, like physics or anything like that. This time it's about senescent cells. It's a subject that I find quite interesting, but I have little expertise in it. But I'm really fond of this kind of thing. It's about anti-aging therapies, basically. Something that is getting more and more attention because there have been some breakthroughs in the last decades or so. And I think it's a really interesting subject, both in terms of science and in terms of the society aspect of the whole problem. Like, should we, if we should we do the anti-aging process for everyone and other society issues like that? And I think it's fascinating. So yeah, this is just a small article, a piece of a news feature from Nature, and so yeah, just to give you a brief summary of what senescent cells are. Basically, when you age, you're naturally if I understand correctly, your genes, your genomes, your whole genetic sorry your genomes gets damaged along the way at each replication. At each time a cell divide, it gets a little bit, usually it gets a little bit damaged and repaired, and sometimes not repaired well. And this leads to cells that do not function properly. And usually these cells will basically suicide so that they don't damage the body. Sometimes they will become tumors, like cancer cells, and that's another problem. But there is a third option, is that they become senescent cells. Basically, these are cells that stops dividing, but do not work well in the environment, the tissue they are in, but they are not like becoming cancer cells. That's actually one of the hypothesis for this mechanism, the existence of this mechanism, is that these are cells that stop functioning properly, but there is something that prevents them from multiplying, so that they do not become cancer cells. It's something that is trying to prevent cancer, but still you have like some kind of zombie cells that are lingering in the tissue, and they are not harmless. They have some effects that is they have an arousing local inflammation and damaging effect on the nearby cells, which in itself is pretty bad, because it's actually thought to be one of the main contributor to the process of aging, why our tissues that are old are actually what we call old actually is. It's tissues with inflammations, with things that are not working properly, and that might be due in a great part due to senescent cells in these tissues. So there have been a lot of effort to try to clear these senescent cells from the body, and there have been a lot of startups and different companies coming up with different treatments. And at first, it seemed to work well in the lab, and there was one company called Unity Biotechnology, I think, that went to clinical trial and managed to show at first some encouraging results, but in the end, the clinical trial did not manage to give good enough results to continue, and so they had to stop, which is too bad. Not just because it's a lot of effort that went wrong. It's more like it hurt the it hurt the whole field. They explained here because a lot of investors got cold feet when they saw that this kind of clinical trial can just fail on these kind of drugs, and so they a lot of startups had some problems with that. But now there are still a lot of effort going on this field, and they are taking a lot of different strategies to tackle the senescent problems. So the article is quite interesting because it's a good review of and well explained of a lot of different strategies that can be used. What they say also here about the first treatment that was tested and that failed in the clinical trial is that for now it's very much, they very much try to clear senescent cells with a local delivery strategy, meaning they only try, it's not a systemic injection of a drug, it's something that is very localized, because they are afraid that the product that the drug that they use can have some toxicity effect on non-senescent cells, so they need to focus on some specific part. Here, I think it was on the knee, the problems with with the knees. I don't remember exactly. And so, yeah, there is an effort on some other teams to try to find a way to have a what they call a systemic therapy for senescent cell clearance, which is basically you just inject a drug and it only targets senescent cells and it clears everything. And it kind of reminds of the problem that we have with cancer cells, because it's hard to find a drug that will selectively target cancer cells and destroy them, or just ask them to kill themselves. So it's a bit of the same problem, and they talk about this aspect in the article. But still, there is one big difference with the cancer treatments, is that with cancers, what you want to do is have a treatment that is like a shock treatment. It will be very strong. You have to destroy all the cells, because otherwise you will have problems with the tumor growing back and other kind of problems like this. So you have to be sure that you've got them all. Here, with the senescent cells therapy, clearance therapy, you can have a much more gentle process, because you don't need to clear all the senescent cells. You just have to clear enough of them that it has an effect. And so it can be more gentle, more gradual. It doesn't need to be a shock treatment. And there is hope that this is something that might be better to, might be easier to implement. But still, there is a lot of, so the article goes on with a lot of different treatments and approach, and I won't tell you about them all, but they are, I find it quite incredible for someone like me who is not in cellular biology or nanobiotechnologies, how these teams can tackle this kind of problem with tinkering with the different chemical pathways inside of the cells and targeting very specific nodes of the chemical reactions inside those cells and everything. And it's quite outstanding, all the different ways we have today to target very specific paths. And well, I'm sure that the article oversimplifies some things because there are a lot of work behind it, but still to be able to do all of these is quite incredible. So yes, I just finished by telling that the article, I really recommend it if you want to have a broad understanding of where we are right now with the senescent cell clearance therapy, because it reads really well. It gives you a good understanding of the whole field.
Thank you, Victor. There is a lot of things I like about this article, starting with one of the youngest people in the room talking about de-aging. And then I bet you get excited about it because of the zombie cells. That sounds like your thing.
Honestly, not really.
Really?
No, yeah, no, I'm really excited about the de-aging process at all. I'm kind of a fan of science fiction, and this is something that is very that it's a recurrent theme in science fiction about de-aging and rejuvenation and stuff like that. And quite understandably, it's a theme also in a lot of well, it's always been a theme in when you think about magic and about the legends. Even like way past, there was the quest for eternal life by well, even by different non-existing characters, but also if you go to China, by the emperors were always trying to find a way to get immortal through different weird chemicals and drinking mercury or stuff like that. Obviously it didn't work, but still it's been part of the human psyche for quite a long time to defeat death, to defeat aging, to stay young. And I think that what we are seeing right now, like in the last decade, is something that is incredible, because we have at last something that might lead to, if not eternal youth or anything, at least removing the natural barriers that we have in our in the age that we can reach. And also just even in the case, for example, where these therapies do not increase our lifespan, one thing that will happen with these, if they work, is that it will increase our health span, what we call the health span. This is the time we spend in good health right now, because a lot of time nowadays in developed countries, we live older and older, but we also spend a lot of these parts of our life with diseases, with troubles, with aging troubles, aging-related troubles and disease. And this kind of thing, it's a hope to increase this health span that I was talking about, and to improve the life of a lot of people.
One question I got for you before I open up to the floor is, on one of the pages, the peptide paragraph, it was talking about someone self-injecting it. and
Oh yeah.
documenting it online. What's the outcome?
Oh, I didn't check. Sorry. I was.
Okay.
It was not. It was something that I wanted to check, but I forgot. And but I really want to see that. Since they are not saying anything bad happened, I kind of guess that the guy is all right, and that nothing much is visible. But and anyway, it's one person with all the problem that you can have with a one-person study, where you have like confirmation bias and stuff like that. So I'm not sure of the real scientific interest of this kind of thing, but I mean, I'll check it out.
Even from an ethical point of view, those self-injection studies usually ring a bell and raise a red flag.
Yeah,
so be interesting. Okay, are there questions?
I don't know if they say these things in the article about like the COVID situation now, that they say that if you have COVID or you're like your age, you seem like this aging process seems to speed up, and so maybe this is maybe useful in the future also related to this current pandemic.
They talk about a lot of diseases, but not at all about the COVID, because it's mostly a review article from the last decades and everything that is going on. So I don't think there is like very current articles about what's going on with the COVID and stuff like that. Yeah, no, it's mostly about diseases linked to aging of some organs and the effect of these treatments on these organs, like the fibrosis in the lungs or problems with the liver and stuff like that. So not really linked to COVID or anything.
Yeah, but I really like your expression, like the health life, like
the health
longer.
Span. Yeah.
Health span. Yeah.
Like it's not mine. I just it's something that is talked about in the field. So yeah.
I like it.
Any other questions?
Yeah, if I may. It's not really a question, but more a comment. What you mentioned about the startups, I think it's a very big problem with science, because a lot of also a lot in neuroscience. A lot of startups are starting things, developing apps or developing whatever hardware, or and they are claiming all sorts of magical properties to their thing, and then it's damaging the whole field, because either it doesn't work or sometimes it can be, well, there are some regulation, but already if it doesn't work and they are claiming all sorts of things, it's damaging to the science, because in the scientific articles we are not claiming that our things are working and will save the planet. We are always careful with our conclusions. I mean, hopefully most scientists are, and the startup system is, I think, is very damaging for the research, because as you said, it's damaging the image of the science, and then people are less they don't want to give money anymore because they don't believe in it, but it's just because it was not actual science.
Yeah, I see what you mean, but I think it doesn't really apply here. I think it can apply in fields where you have like a gray line between what is just like pure research and what can be applied. And here it's more about well, it's hard to say, because it's really case by case. You can't really generalize. I mean, of course there are some startups that exist and that like a kind of
some startups are good, I mean, for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And here, because it's really about finding therapies and not just self-help with an app, I think it's really different. There is a lot of effort behind this. For me, the aspect that really surprised me was the number of startups that are started by these kind of labs. It's crazy. It's like it's mostly, I think, in the States. They do it a lot. Is that they find one molecule that seems to have some effect. They start a startup.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, this is not science.
No, but it's a way also to get something that might be useful to the population and to try to get it out of the lab. Something that sometimes, if you just have scientists interested in just finding out the truth, you will have to wait for 100 years before it gets out of the lab, because before you find everything about this molecule and the pathways involved, you'll have to wait a long time and have to do a lot of research. And
I agree that you need to diffuse the science, but I'm not sure that startups are a good way. I think it would be better with the open source things. Like open source doesn't only apply to programming. We've seen a lot of things like biology or renewable energies and all sorts of hardware developed in open source, and then people can actually do it themselves. I mean, it depends. Sometimes you need heavy industry to do it, but
that's a whole other can of worm, because when you start talking about open source, there's some stuff that can be great, but there are a lot of projects that are quite dangerous and ethically not as easily understood. Well, it's
but at least with the open source, it's in the hand of the people and not in just a startup saying that site works.
Yeah,
because we have the money. But it's another debate.
Yeah, it's a whole debate, I think. Yeah.
I mean, what's also important is that we usually have to disclaim if science is linked to startups or companies of any sort. And there's definitely an advantage to go into a startup or some kind of industry at some point, as Victor said, like from bench to bed can take maybe not 100 years, but certainly decades. And sometimes it's good if you have something promising to speed up and try to make it happen. Look at the COVID vaccine, for example. One of the examples where it was scientific research turned into a company saving the world. So there can be good to it, but I see what you mean, that if everyone does it and it's not nicely separated, then it becomes hard to disentangle.
It has to be regulated.
Might be damaging. Yeah. But also, I think open science, as much as we need it and it's good, it may not solve all the problems.
Well, I don't think there is one solution that will solve all the problems, but I think it's a good way. But yeah.
But thanks for the discussion. Very, very intriguing. There is much more I think we can discuss also about the philosophy behind extending lifetime and health spans. But in the interest of time, I would move us on to the next paper. Thank you very much, Victor and Chris, for the discussion. Leah, do you want to start sharing your screen and send us your paper? And also for those people watching on YouTube, you can write your questions in the chat and I will bring it back to the team over here on Zoom. Oh, I recognize that one.
Can you see just the paper or the screen?
Just the paper.
Okay, okay, perfect. So it's big enough. Yes, so this was an article published in Nature 2 weeks ago, like not last week, but the week before. And it's about this amazing experiment that really, as the title says, cheered up the scientific community. So yeah, we are talking about physics, if we want to have a subject mainly, but as you can see from the name of the experiment G-2, G is the gyromagnetic moment that we know in magnetic resonance, and we use it. In this case, in this experiment, they are measuring the G related to the muon which is a subatomical particle. So just to give like a location, we are in the nucleus, but inside the nucleus structure. And the way we explain the physics there is by the standard model. And if the muon is part of the standard model, and if the measure related to muon properties like the G factor are not what we are expected, because we are expected the number 2. And here in this experiment, we are measuring the difference between our measure and the expected one. And if this difference is like bigger than what the error tolerated can be, then that means that maybe we are not considering something. Maybe there are other particles that we are not considering at the moment in the standard model. And so this is the title of the article. Is it the standard model broken? So maybe we are not at the point that we explain correctly what is happening there. And I really like this article by Davide Castelvecchi, since it's really clear and really makes you like feel inside that really moment. Since of course the experiment was validated just a few weeks ago, the results, when they were conducting this experiment. The results were secret, the data acquired, since they don't want to bias the analysis. And so just after conducting all the experiments, at the end, you know what the result is, what is the G-2 result. And all of this was conducted in Zoom meetings, has everything now. And here it's really nice also the description of this moment where like some people were unmuted, so they couldn't say nothing. Some people were like give like comments about the experiment. And here, like the main discussion that he's reported that was on Zoom is that now the so at this point the ball is in the terrorist court. Yes, because in physics we have this polarized vision of experimental physicists and theoretical physicists. So the theoretical approach is mostly about the theory and all the mathematical calculations that give you the expected result, in this case 2. And the experimental approach is the one that are really like conducting the experiment and taking care about all the process to, let's say, empirically have these results. So now, since the results, this difference seems like bigger than the error is the tolerated error, so it seems that so the theorists should like maybe come up with another solutions. Here we are. They talk about also the quantum chromodynamics, a new lattice theory that maybe can solve this prediction problem. And this experiment was the third one, so it's a replication of so the first time it was at CERN and Geneva. Then in 2001 was conducted, so this measure G-2 was conducted at the Brookhaven laboratory in New York. And these results published, commented in this article, are from the Fermi Lab in Chicago. And it is really like, so all these also locations are really like meaningful in the physics evolution I remember when I was starting about, like at Fermi period, where they conducted experiments in like it was like a football like stadium in Chicago, and now we are reached this point of this immune prediction, and when Fermi was conducting their experiments, they were like exploring the neutrons, the protons, and now we are at the subatomical level. So it's really interesting also from this point of view. And yes, this is the main idea underneath this experiment. Of course, you have these big experimental infrastructures where the particles move around and using the magnetic and fields, you are trying to measure the behavior, the trajectory of these particles, and then of course, if these predictions doesn't fit the theoretical expectation of the two-factor, then also other experiments also in larger colliders should be conducted in the future. Are you tapping something? I can see that. And yes, this is the experiment. I don't know if you were writing something because I don't know where the chat is now. I hear the chat.
You found
Okay.
Thank you, Leah. This is it's exciting. I wouldn't say I understand it, but it's exciting.
No, yeah, like yeah, this is like the simple description that I also like following this article, and of course then I also myself I can go into the details of the quantum chromodynamics, but this is the idea, and I really like that also this factor is also kind of related to the magnetic world by the G factor.
And you mentioned they did all of this via Zoom.
The result discussion here, not the because okay. Like in this kind of experiments, you acquire the data in one center where there is all the experimental facilities, and then you send the data to analyze in supercomputers. So in another article, I read that there was like some labs in Italy, Munich, Zurich, and also a lot of big computers. And so then you send all this data for processing, and then you come up with the results. So it's like a long process. And but the revelation of the final results, this sequence frequency, was done here via Skype, not Skype, Zoom, the 25th of February. Yeah, there were like 200 plus team members connected online. Yeah.
That's very efficient. February. It's impressive. Victor, you're muted. I'm guessing you have a question.
I don't remember what was the uncertainty that they managed to have right at this point.
So it's like between the 3 and 4 standard deviations. It's okay. Like 2 points, something, and then a number. So it's like a really tiny difference that you would say like it's about 2, but for them it's really, but for these kind of physical calculations, it's really important, that factor. Yeah. And also the result is super consistent with the Brookhaven experiment. So it was not just once, this is the replication. So at this point, we are quite sure that there is this problem.
Yeah, there's something about the standard model that is not quite right. But I mean, it's something that we've known for quite some time, that the standard model is not like the whole truth and everything that has to be, everything can be described by it. But it's great that we have like something new here that we can try to understand and to find a way to expand the standard model. And I think that there are already some kind of ways to, well, different ways people are trying to expand it. Like, for example, adding new particles and forces to the standard model. But for me, it's it's quite incredible that we managed to reach this stage of peering into the way the matter of the universe work, but at the same time, every time we manage to go a little bit deeper, finding everything that is related to this tiny thing that is deeper is harder and harder. And I wonder if at some point we'll just reach a point where we say, okay, we see that our results are not that great. I mean, they are super good in this case and in this case, but here we see that it doesn't work, but there is no way for us to know what's going on. And I fear at some point we might reach this point. And I hope we are not quite there yet, but yeah.
Yeah, there's always these uncertainty problems, like the famous Schrödinger box, and and when you do a measure, you are somehow modifying the real physics, and so the real measures, so so there is also an uncertainty. And of course, when you go, as you said, like deeper and deeper inside the atomic structure, or bigger in the universe, so these are the two extremes fields, then of course the uncertainty is important. And also I found, like as you said, the standard model was putting force together in 1970, so it's almost 50 years that is passing all these experimental confirmations, let's say, and in the large colliders, in other accelerators. And so it's not too bad. Maybe there's something more to explain. For example, like the neutrins, then they were adding to explain that little bit of mass variation. And maybe so we need something like that, other leptons, I would say. And but yeah, I'm not like an expert. Just advise but yeah. So maybe it's not like a huge change, but there's something that we are not considering, for these tiny differences.
I mean, there was one thing that is, I don't know much about it either, but if I remember correctly, the muon is like very similar to an electron, but more massive. And the thing is, for now, we cannot reconcile the theory of gravitation, of gravity, of Einstein's theory of gravity with quantum physics and anything in between. So it's there is clearly something wrong here, and so I wonder if it might be related to that, or if we can still keep them, the two theories, separate and still have some good predictions about the outcome of each theory. So, well, I'm guessing that in the next decade or so, we might have more answers about that. But they are already planning to maybe create an even bigger hadron collider, like the CERN. You know about the one that is in Switzerland, and that is like, I think 27 kilometers. I don't know if it was in diameter or if in circumference. I don't remember.
Circumference.
Circumference. Okay, so it's pretty big, and they are thinking about doing one of 100 kilometer in circumference. But it's like, but thing is, it would cost a lot of money, and people are saying, yeah, maybe put that money somewhere else, because there are a lot of stuff that could be done with this kind of money. So, yeah.
Yes, a lot of resources you need for this kind of experiments. And also, as you were saying, like there is also this discrepancy between the theories and the experimental measures, because you can try to find all the elegance and explain this connection between the infinitive bigger, infinitive smaller, but then you kind of have to measure that. And then you need like these big facilities, and it's expensive, yes.
Right. Any more questions for Leah?
If if I can. Isn't there another experiment on the muons in the LHT at CERN? Because I just followed this thing about the muons on YouTube and Science News, and some of them were talking about another experiment at CERN having similar results, but it's a slightly different experiment, but it's on the same problem.
So like the first G-2 experiment was conducted at CERN, but you have to find the exactly date, and also at CERN they are conducting I guess a lot of experiments also about moons, so maybe they were discussing something like that on YouTube. I don't know. I will to find the date of the other.
You already said that in Brookhaven.
So the CERN one was in 1959. So it was like maybe they were referring to another experiment at the CERN now.
Already if it's in two different labs, it's super encouraging. They don't have the it's 5 sigma that they need, 5 standard deviation to be significant for the physicists.
Yes, more than 3, I guess, but yeah.
So it's super encouraging. Hopefully.
Yes, they were.
I'm super excited about it.
Okay, here in the comments they were saying that yes, there is this great consistency between the experiments. So if also the replication is it's so precise, so maybe we are into something here.
That would be so cool. Well, people are talking about a new force and stuff like that. So exciting.
Yeah, because then you have these diagrams, like they could Feynman diagrams where you explain these the collisions or the interaction between particles. There are these virtual particles that you're trying to catch up, and then in the explanation of all these particles interaction, you have the forces, the fields, and then the particle associated to the fields, and so of course then you open up a new world.
Yeah, well, when you see astrophysics, there is basically what 70% or no, it's more than that. It's like 95% of what we see in the universe that we cannot explain. So it might help, and that would maybe make a bridge between particle physics and astrophysics. Maybe, hopefully.
No, yes, that was one of the bigger discussion about that, because yes, from the measures we came up that we don't know. We can explain a lot of things, so maybe we need new particles or forces or fields, as you can say, to explain that. But excited, really exciting work, but really hard because it's difficult to explain that.
So I see it's exciting. I see you're all excited, and I don't know if you have an answer to that, but how can we bring it back to something more applicable rather than abstract, cool physical sciences? And is there any link to the brain that you can possibly see? No.
Yeah, this is what I was trying to explain, that the magnetic resonance is based on the gyromagnetic moment of protons, and then if you know if there is other, for example, moments, features, if you explain how that works, then you can use it. So if there is another force that we can use, then we can maybe have some measure from that. And of course, this is the subatomical, so I don't know if they're gonna be really translated. But the idea is that you understand the mechanism, and then only once you really understand it, you can play with that. Let's think about electromagnetic fields. At the beginning, there were just these measures between like I don't know the word in English, but there were like these really basic science experiments, and then they are translating, changing the word using like telecommunication and everything. So this is the idea. Also, when the Fermi was conducting his experiments, there was not the magnetic resonance yet. They didn't know how the nucleus was made. And then after learning that, you then can use it in normal like medical applications, or so that is the idea behind that. You first focus on try to understand what is going on, and then you play with that. But before, you have to understand it.
Of course. Victor, you shook your head when I asked a question and you unmuted. So
for me, it's far from something that we can really apply. I think because the main difference with the example that Leah talked about is that before it was more about we didn't know how things worked, but we could see them at work in the environment and everything, but we had no theories to explain it, so we could not use them, basically. And then when we understood it, we were able to better use them and create specific tools to use them. But here we are talking about something that we didn't even knew existed, because it's so tiny, so small, that it's something that I doubt is that we can use it really, unless it completely revolutionized everything that we know about how reality works, and then we can find something completely new. But I think it's unlikely. But I mean, I'm a pessimist, so...
I was just going to say, is that you being pessimistic again?
Can play the optimistic if you want.
Yes, go for it.
Because so quantum physics has been like obscure to, I mean, most people. I mean, even if you're just looking at conferences and stuff, it's still so obscure. I watched hundreds of hours about quantum physics on YouTube, or read some papers. I'm not an expert at all, but it's still so obscure. But still, now they are developing quantum computers. So I mean, quantum physics existed for probably a century now. And it's a very strong theoretical model, but they are developing real world applications now. So it's still like under development. It will require several years still to be used, but I'm pretty sure that they are already using the quantum computers in the labs, because it's been several years that we see some news talking about the power of these new computers, how fast they can be for some problems. So there are some applications, but in quantum physics, yeah, it takes years, sometimes decades, but it might happen. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of exciting results that are now applied in quantum physics that are now applied in real world. So I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah, for example, like in quantum physics, as you were saying, it's not just the fast, but it's the amount of information, because there is not the state up and down, switch on and off, but there is a third stage, and you can really play with them so in the Boolean mathematical approach, you just work with yes or no and combine that. If you have another level of information, that really can add information also in the information processing. The problem is the stability of this information. So this is why it's not really common now. But yes, there are people working on that. Like friends that were studying physics with me, they did their PhD on that, and they currently working on that. So it's part of the research. So yeah, it's happening. And for these things, I think that you can't really, so we are trying to plan everything in physics, but sometimes there's this, wow, the big result that you didn't expect, it changed everything. So you don't know, actually. You have tried to keep trying, and then, of course, with all the rigorous approach, methodological approach, but you can really predict the big discoveries that will change the world. So the important is keep trying, to me.
It's not just physics, Leah, it's all of science, that you carefully plan your experiments and then the actual world-changing results are the ones that you didn't consider. That just happened on the side. It's a thing. Victor, you had a question.
Oh, no. So I was waving to Valentina that was leaving.
Okay. Right. Are there any more questions, comments, points of discussion? No? Everyone happy? Great. Well, thanks for those exciting papers, completely out of my comfort zone. Definitely learned something today. So thank you. Thanks for the many discussions and the pessimistic and the optimistic viewpoints. Very much appreciated. And with that, thank you so much for coming today. And we see you next Monday at 9:30. Have a good week.
See you.
Bye.